Hey, welcome to the 250th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Meredith Kirkman and Dalit Berkowitz. I'm Matt Enlow.
And I'm Oren Kaplan, and today we got Justin Polk on the podcast. He is a director. He's directed Superbowl spots. He is a production company owner, and he has a real cool story because he actually didn't start in film at all. He started in sports. He was a football player, and then he went into sports management and met a lot of people and just slowly made his way into film, not even knowing what he wanted to do until he finally became a director and got into advertising. And now I think through his experience, which Matt, I don't know what your highlight is, but my highlight from talking to Justin was just about how honest and frank he was about wanting mentorship and help from other people and not being a know-it-all pretty much, which really let him get into the good graces of a lot of cool people. Like Dean Cain, Superman, is one of the people that championed him.
Yeah, I think Justin, he immediately, as soon as you meet him, you would listen to him on the podcast, you can tell that he's got a very specific warmth about him. He's got a great personality. And so he's the sort of person that I think people like being around and appreciate his hard work. And so to me, it was like, oh, this is a combination of playing to your strengths, of being, like a charismatic people person, and then combining that with hard work makes you a person that really can kind of navigate a lot of different worlds. And so the other thing that I think is interesting is that, and we talk about on the show, he's got kind of such a broad range of experiences, but is able to kind of help highlight them and let them coalesce into a really interesting and marketable set of skills, basically. I think it's one thing to be interested and curious person, and I think it takes an additional layer of savviness to highlight those in ways that are appealing to other people,
Yeah. And I think what's cool about Justin too is how he is taking the mentorship and help he got when he started and giving it back. He has his own company. It's called Invisible Collective, and they are kind of grooming new filmmakers, young filmmakers, sometimes underappreciated filmmakers or people that don't have as many opportunities. So it's cool to hear the journey from beginning to end with him. But before we talk to Justin, Matt, I have been very eager to hear, what have you been working on lately?
Yeah, well, Oren, you were pleased to know, we've been talking about it off mic, that I have jumped into the Blender bandwagon. And I think it is worth talking about a little bit.
Wait, did you call it a blend wagon?
I called it the Blender bandwagon, but I could have been more clever, I suppose. I could have landed that joke stronger.
Also jumping into a bandwagon, which I think you would jump onto a bandwagon, but
I guess you do. Yeah,
you're a newbie.
Yeah, sure.
You're new in the Blender world, so I know that the terminology.
What's the hotkey for sharpening or workshopping? So yeah, I've started doing a handful of different tutorials on Blender. As you've talked about on the show many times before, the thing that's really nice about Blender is that because it's an open source software and entirely free, there's a lot of resources out there that you can use to kind of do a lot of self-teaching. And I have always really enjoyed and appreciated being fluent in After Effects and being able to do shots here and there that maybe need a little TLC and do some kind of custom animation for pieces. But the thing that was really the most handy for me was just knowing what elements I needed on set so that I could get the things that a real VFX artist would need to make the shot good, basically. And to know what's going to make things more complicated, what's not, what's feasible, what's hard, all of that stuff. And also then you can have a more informed conversation with those artists if you have the luxury of a little bit of prep time, basically. And so I thought, well, why not jump in and do a little bit more self-teaching and learn a little bit more about 3D, because it had always been something that was really intimidating. And I think that there's a couple takeaways that I want to bring up to people.
Can I give you my takeaway first?
Please, hit it.
So in Hollywood, there's this weird thing where, let's say your cousin is an agent at CAA and you're writing pretty good scripts and sending it to her, but she just doesn't think you're ready to be at CAA. And then all of a sudden, a famous actor reads your script or sees something you posted on Instagram and is like, ooh, I would like to be a part of this project. And all of a sudden, that cousin of yours that never quite cared for what you said or what you wrote because you were nobody, all of a sudden is interested in, setting up some meetings for you and maybe showing your script to some people, even though nothing has changed. So there's a little bit of that in this story in which I could just talk about Blender and how cool it is forever with Matt. But when David F. Sandberg, the director of Shazam, makes a video talking about how cool it is, Matt's finally like, okay, I'll check this out. And I don't mean, obviously you always knew it was cool, but like knew that it was like a useful tool as a director, like outside of like the 3D VFX world.
Yeah, and I think it is an important distinction. I think the thing that I want to impart to listeners that I think maybe was a mental block for me before when Oren was telling me how cool it was and was showing me all of the awesome stuff that he was doing. There were two big thresholds that made me apprehensive. One was that I don't have any ambition to be a VFX artist the way that, you do that as a side hustle and that's something that's really natural for you and you have a lot of aptitude in that space already, right? So even though you're never going to like go hit up Lawson Deming over at Barnstorm to like, day play for him, it is a part of your toolkit wherein you are offering to maybe do some really complicated shots on a job. You're getting jobs because of your VFX expertise. And I don't think that will ever be a huge part of my repertoire.
But for sure you can, once you know Blender a little more, already knowing After Effects, when you pitch on a job, you can say, this is a big VFX job, and I have a lot of experience with VFX, motion graphics, and I will know how to run this team, to get what we need.
Without a doubt. Yeah. The goal for me is to be a good leader and to be educated on what it is I'm asking people to do. But so that is an important distinction. Like you don't have to be a professional VFX artist to benefit greatly from learning how to do any part of this toolkit, the same way that it's important that you know how your camera works, even if you don't touch cameras. And the other thing that I think is worth talking about is that, Oren, we talked a lot about how like you got a beefy new PC that you built yourself and it's got all of this stuff or whatever. And my laptop is from 2014 and I am still doing fine. I'm not doing like big, gnarly, heavy duty renders, but like a lot of the things that I'm hoping to do with my Blender skills, animatics, storyboards, all of that stuff, that's still a pretty light lift for even a kind of old crappy laptop. My laptop was good when I bought it. It was I buy them to last a long time. So I bought them, it was spec'd out, but still is just like a off the shelf MacBook, So I think that that's another thing for people to know is that like, look, you might crash a little bit more. It might take you a lot longer to like be able to see what your render ultimately looks like, but you can definitely get by and, maybe don't make your animated 3D feature on an old laptop, but certainly you can make some cool storyboards and like learn on an old laptop and it won't be a huge deal.
Yeah, you can even animate, you can sculpt. There's a few things you can, lighting and rendering is like kind of a hard thing, but everything else is interesting. But I think there is one piece of hardware that you can literally get for under $10 that is, I think is the roadblock you hit. And if I encourage anyone that's interested in learning 3D at all to purchase one of these things.
And that is a mouse. I was doing a lot on a trackpad and there's just too much. You need a click wheel. You need a third button, basically.
I mean, it's a recipe for arthritis is to use a trackpad for 3D because you got to do all these weird, because did you set it up where if like you do a 3-finger press or something, it's the middle button?
No, I was doing pinch and squeeze and just kind of, again, I was like doing tutorials and stuff like that. So like if there was a step that I was like, this isn't going to work, I just kind of like didn't care that much, like I just kind of like worked my way around it. And, like with any of those tools, there's a lot of different ways to do certain things. So, but also to your point, the mouse I got works great and it was $10.
All you really need is a middle mouse button. And I have the Logitech one that works on the Mac and the PC, MX Master 3, which is cool, but it's not really any better than the like $10 mouse that came with my computer. Did you get a wireless mouse or?
Yeah, I ordered like the Wirecutter recommended wireless mouse and it was like $40 or whatever. And it was back ordered. It was just taking forever. And then I just was like, what am I, like, I don't need a super mouse. I just need a third button. So I canceled that order and got the Amazon, recommends, or the Amazon basic mouse, and it's fine.
Yeah. So you received it already?
Yeah.
And have you used it yet?
I haven't used it yet. I've used it for just regular old
mousing around.
Mousing off, but otherwise I'm...
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, if anyone is interested in knowing why to even care about Blender, I just posted some things on my Instagram account and Twitter and
some good looking stuff, man.
Facebook. Yeah. Thanks. Some boards I did. And actually, I talk about how I when I try out new software on a client job, I try to do it when the stakes are really low. So oftentimes, on low budget projects, people don't even really expect storyboards because they're like, we can spend that whatever $1,000 to $2,000 somewhere else. And so a lot of times I just kind of make them myself, and I know no matter how bad they are, they're going to be better than nothing. And so on this job I had last year, I was using Cinema 4D to make the boards, and then I was like, I already made the boards. They're fine. I might as well just try to remake the same thing in Blender. And if it works out, it works out. And it didn't. I actually think the Blender ones look better because Blender is free, so you can kind of just try out all the different things. When Cinema 4D, if I would want to try it on my PC, I would have had to get a new license and all these different things. So anyway, I'm a big fan. If you want to see more, you can check out my Instagram, or just the whole Blender community is just so amazing. So I'm glad that you are.
Yeah, I'm on board. And the other thing that I think I'm really excited to check out is photogrammetry. So basically, you're on a scout, you take a photo, and then, you can go ahead and map that into a 3D space, and then you can fly a virtual camera around and find different angles and things like that. And that I'm very excited for. And frankly, isn't super technical. Once you kind of figure out how to map things properly, most locations are just a box, maybe there's a little bit of stuff here and there, and then you can start having fun, pulling models off the internet and populating the space a little bit more. But I think that the aspect of basically playing with Legos, but in your computer and with a 3D camera is the thing that is the light bulb that went off for me, basically.
Yeah. There's this, about are you talking about LiDAR, or are you just talking about in general?
I'm talking about, there's a plugin specifically, not a LiDAR based plugin.
Yeah. Where you take a million photos and then you can make 3D objects out of them.
No. I'm talking about actually something more simple, basically, that would just give you basically build the planes basically, and then map each. Yeah. F-Spy.
Yeah. Well, this LiDAR thing is, I did not want to get the iPhone 12 or an iPad Pro, but people are doing that. These new phones have these 3D scanners in them that literally, what Matt is saying, you can just walk into a convenience store and scan the store, and then you have it in 3D, textured in color and everything. It's totally incredible. Bonkers. But anyway, okay, well, we should probably talk to Justin Polk. Before we do that, I do want to remind people about our Patreon page, patreon.com/justshootitpod. And I want to thank everyone again for being patrons of the podcast. We're having a pretty good little run there, and I hope you guys feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, 250 episodes, Oren. We didn't even remark. That's a lot.
Oh, yeah, this is 250 episodes. 250,000 episodes, give or take a few zeros. But no, 250,000, that is not bad, right?
That's a lot of time.
If you think one a week, that's a lot of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Since we started, we've probably made and lost many friendships.
That's definitely true. Yeah. Mostly lost.
Yeah. It is interesting. The older you get, the less friends you have. Have you noticed that?
I sacrifice a lot for this show. So the least you can do.
Yeah. But the more directors you talk to. Well, cool. Yeah. So if you go there, Patreon, for those that don't know, it's just a place. You can give us a few bucks a month. $1, $4, $10 are kind of our featured levels. $10, you get a free hat. Just shoot.
Don't sleep on the $20 level. $20 level.
Yeah.
You get the t-shirt. You get the
$20,
t-shirt at 20.
The t-shirt. $4, you get the sticker. $1, you get to just help us.
Bragging rights, yeah. And but also you do get access to our live streaming events, for instance, things like that are pretty excellent.
Yeah. Is it a tax write-off? Probably not.
We did talk about that. You argued that
it was,
if
right?
you say
Education, research.
education research, yeah, look, neither of us are lawyers or tax experts in any way, but I'd talk to my CPA about that and see what they say.
Yeah, $1 a month. It's $12 a year. That's offsetting 2 coffees.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, cool. Well, patreon.com/justshootapod. We really appreciate it. And here is Justin Polk. We talked about this right before we started recording, but you're a commercial director, but you, before that, were a commercial producer, and you came from the advertising side. So tell us a little bit about when you started wanting to be a filmmaker and how that journey started.
I think since growing up, my passions have always been sports, architecture, and film. I think those 3 things are the things that I've always really loved. And a little bit of politics as well, as we talk about James K. Polk. Maybe that's in the blood. My origin story is a lot different than a lot of people's because, I didn't go to film school. I wasn't one of those film school people.
Nerds, we call them.
Yeah. I actually started working in sports when I first got to college. I worked at Reebok and did sports marketing for 5 years right after college.
Did you study marketing in college?
I did not. I was an art history guy
that's cool.
and sociology. I went to some small liberal arts college upstate New York.
Oh, which one?
Colgate University.
Oh, cool. Love the toothpaste.
Yes. But to make a long story short, spent my time in sports, and then when I was in sports, my creative side was never satisfied. So I was always trying to figure out what was it that I needed to do, and I loved my job because it was the best job that out of any of my friends that I had. I was hanging with some of the famous athletes that you would know now, like the Iversons, the Yao Mings, the Don McNabbs, Peyton Mannings, like those are my guys. Got to go out and hang out with them. I'm 22, 23 years old.
Lots of drugs and jacuzzis.
It was more so lots of Vegas and lots of late night random calls from guys asking for things.
And a lot of sneakers.
Lots of sneakers, yes. My wife would say the same thing as my house is still filled with sneakers.
Can I just an aside real quick about the art history degree? Like when you're in college and you're like, this art history is just like the dumbest major. There's like no job that requires this art history degree. And your parents are like, what the fuck are we wasting all this money for? But then you're someone like me, much later in life, and a filmmaker. I have a degree in computer science, totally unrelated, but thinking like literally I'm now during this pandemic trying to learn art history and realizing like that what an amazing foundation for any creative field it is to have that degree. It's like one of those degrees.
It's one of those things where I don't remember everything, but then randomly if somebody says something, I'll be like, oh yeah, and this and this and this. Like it just comes back to me because it was a lot of reading and a lot of looking at art and paintings and the architecture. And then mine was focused more on architecture side. So, I was looking at different eras and things like that. So it was just, there's a lot of information. And I was also doing the art side as well. So while I was doing that, I was doing my printmaking, my drawing, my painting, my photography classes, things like that.
It teaches you to look at the world though, which is something that I think we take for granted. But me as an engineer, we looked at the world in a very different way, And it took me a while to learn about that stuff.
And I think also like just having disparate interests is a thing that serves you well as an artist later, right? Like I feel like I as a young man was like just obsessed with movies, and like it took me a while, like everyone always talks about this, but like if all you care about is movies, then the only movies you can make are about movies, and we've got enough of those already,
Yeah, and I'll say this as well. I was also an athlete in college. I played football, and so it was funny being the art guy on the football team as well, right?
Yeah.
Well respected, but I did get made fun of some as well.
Sure.
I came in one time. I came in with like this little wispy mustache, and everybody was like, "Oh, the artist mustache."
Right.
Like Justin, you want to wear your beret under that?
Yeah.
Which going to summer in the Sorbonne, Justin?
Which I don't get embarrassed very easily, so I was just like, okay, let's get so that would egg people on more. But yes, art history was I enjoyed it, and I still love it this day. I love going back and reading books. And I used to have my professor come to wherever city, like my architecture professor from college. I used to email with him and have him come to whatever city I was and do an architecture tour and things like that. So, but he doesn't do it anymore. He's retired and doing all that stuff. But back to my life, my long life here. I feel like I've lived 3 of them. When I was at Reebok, I just noticed that I was on set for I think an Iverson commercial, and I was just like looking. I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool. I was like looking at like we were doing stuff. Like it was my first set I've been on it ever, and seeing the director do his thing and like the hustle and bustle of the set, and it just seemed like I was like, oh, this looks cool. I was like, maybe I want to move to LA, and so that was like year 4 Reebok, and I lasted 5.
You were in New York at that time?
I was in Boston. I lived in New York too for a little before that, and
But Reebok had you traveling, I imagine, right?
Yeah,
when you were on set, you were in LA. Maybe I should stick out.
Yeah. We actually, I think that one I might have been shot in Philly. It was probably shot in Philly. And I mean, I travel a lot. But I came to California one time. I was like, this place is beautiful. And then I came back and I realized like this might be a place I want to live, and it has the industry that I might want to be in. So I just saved up money for a year and went out of job. This is 2008, everybody.
Sure, yeah.
Recession.
A bad year to quit your job.
Yeah, for our younger listeners, that's like the economy is about to take a nosedive, right?
Oh, it was in a nosedive, and I was quitting my job. Everybody's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm just gonna quit." I was like, "I'm just gonna move to LA and I'm gonna figure it out." And like everybody's like, "Okay, you got a job?" Like, no, I'm just leaving.
Was that during the writer's strike too?
Writer's strike had just ended.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there. It was. It might have. I don't know if it ended. Maybe it ended that summer. All I know is that I moved out on July 3rd of 2008. That's when I moved out. Quit Reebok on July 1st. Was in LA by July 3rd. And enjoying life. Like you said, many people don't know. I don't know what I was doing. I was like, okay, where do I go from here? Luckily, as I was figuring it out, I had a couple of friends that were interning in different places and working in the industry.
Wait, can I ask you for a second? Like, what brought you to LA was that feeling you had when you were on set and seeing the machinery of the collaboration, like art and commerce and all that going together. It was more that than it was like seeing a movie that you loved that made you want to go.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I mean, I watch movies all the time as well, just like you guys. And I love movies. But then it was, and I knew I liked movies. And I said,
who doesn't like movies though?
That was
right?
one of my, of course. That was one of my passions.
Everyone loves movies.
Like watching like Radio Flyer or like Shawshank Redemption. Those are like movies that I just love to keep watching over fried green tomatoes.
I love fried green tomatoes too, man.
Yes, great film. It was like being there and seeing like the creativity. I was like, this is what I'm missing. I'm missing something like this, and I didn't know exactly what that was. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I was like, I need to change. I need to change the pace because I didn't want to be the person at 40 years old saying, why am I still in this industry that I don't love as much as I thought I did? Which is what I saw. And so I told you guys my motto is when life is like, why not? So I just said, fuck it, and just moved on moved to LA and said, we'll figure it out from there.
So I want to not to pump the brakes too many times, Justin, but I think it's really interesting that like you had a great job, right? And so the decision, it feels like it's almost like a bigger risk because like you're walking away from a thing that other people would kill to have that job.
Yes, that was the biggest thing.
But like you have it, and so you don't want it, right?
Yeah, I it's funny because I was literally at my 5-year reunion, and I was trying to make the decision I was really going to do this. It was I had been saving up. I paid off my car, like little things just like to make this move, and I had like 10 grand in my bank account, which I just like hustle and bustle to save over. I also bartended when I was in Boston a little bit too, so I was like saving money on the side, like trying to make this move. And I was on my 5-year reunion, and everybody's like I felt so happy, and I was like, I think it's time to get out of the East Coast and go and do something new. I was like, it doesn't matter. Like everybody's in that transition mode. People aren't happy in their job. Other people aren't happy in their jobs as well. I was like, I just need to be happy. Let me figure this out. So I just dipped.
Well, our generation was like famous for like the multi-career, just the opposite of our parents who got into an industry and stayed forever.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And my mom was like, you like to talk to your parents during this time and figure out what's what. And my mom was just like, whatever, if you want to do it. Like nobody was like, she's like, just do it, just be happy. I think that was the biggest thing, was like, just be happy, because she knows, like you said, she spent 30 years at Southwestern Bell / AT&T, and she was like, it was a job,
It's a job. Yeah, you turned out great.
Weekends off.
Yeah.
You had a pension, but
she definitely had a pension. She definitely had a pension, and she's doing her thing, buying, selling houses, rehabbing now after retirement. So that's what she loves now. So she's doing what she loves.
So I'd be remiss to not ask, on your move to LA, is there anything that you would have done differently, or any advice you could give to a person who's at their 5-year reunion right now on Zoom, wishing it was in person?
It's a very popular topic on our podcast.
But the move to LA is a question for
whether people should move to LA and how they should do it.
It's hard to say, because for me it was the right decision. It was the right move. It just, there was no other choice. It was like, this is where if I wanted to try it, I need to be here. I didn't know. I mean, I knew I could have went to New York and tried it, but it just didn't seem like the right place for me to go. I mean, I'd been in New York already at some point or another, at many points, like either my summer internships or even just right after college. I lived there before I got my job. And I love New York, and it's like, New York's my heart. I always say that to this day, but it just wasn't, I didn't feel like it was the center of the entertainment universe, right? It's like, you get here, you're going to learn more.
Yeah. The only people who say it's the center of the universe are people who live in New York.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it is huge in advertising, though.
Sure. That's true. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I'll get to that later. I had no clue about advertising. That was like a whole different thing. I actually ended up, because of people that I knew, my guys I went to college with and I played football with, they all lived out here, even my best friend, who, they were all working in the industry at some point. One was working for a manager, one was working somewhere else. I can't remember back then. But they introduced me to this guy that was running the program at Village Roadshow Pictures.
Dude, did you do the internship with Fred?
Fred Klein.
Yeah, I also did.
He's a Colgate guy. He went to Colgate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Fred wasn't there when I did it, though. It was when I got another guy. Fred had just left, and another guy came in, and his name was Matt Skeena. And Matt brought me in, and I don't know what I was doing. I was just like, okay, I'll come in, interview, and I was like, this is where I'm trying to go. And they hooked me up and let me come in. I went twice a week, and learn coverage.
Like, I think it's so notable about that internship, and I don't know if they did it for you, was like they'd give you this list of movies that you should have seen, and they ask all the interns who's seen, like, to fill out this list, to mark which movies they've seen, and then part of your internship was they would rent the movies that the least interns had seen, and you would watch them. Like,
that's fun. I didn't realize that part of it. That's great.
They did do that, but they were in production. This was basically me, like, one-on-one, right? Learning this, and I got a chance to. They were making Sherlock. They were making the Sherlock movie, and they were also making the movie Cat's Dog. So I got a chance to.
Okay. Oh, the animated movie.
It's like
live action.
Live action
CG?
with like CG dogs and stuff.
Did Brad Payton direct that?
I did not.
He directed Cats and Dogs 2.
Oh, yes.
He was previous guest, Brad Payton.
But, I didn't know anything. And so I got a chance to learn from them. And their head of production, but Jeffrey Lampert, he was the head of production. And we got close. And he took me, not on set, but he took me around the studio and introduced me to people, introduced me to the head of the studio. I was playing basketball with all these guys all the time.
The Warner Brothers folks.
Yeah, Warner Brothers. Yeah, on the Warner Brothers lot. And, it was amazing because I got to meet people that I never would have thought I would meet. And so that just got me, like, my name around circles and stuff like that. And nothing ever came of it, though. But at least later in life, when I saw people knew who I was, which was nice.
And you didn't know what you wanted to do in the business? You were just
I was still trying to figure it out. And I started getting an idea. I said, well, maybe I want to produce. And then as I got later, I'll talk about this later, I started deciding that maybe I want to direct. And, during those times, I'm also working at a restaurant. I got a restaurant job, as a lot of us do. I worked at the counter in El Segundo.
Oh, that's That's a hike, man.
It was kind of nice because I did live West Side, and I was living in Playa del Rey at the time, and so it wasn't that far from me. But it was kind of nice because it was kind of off the map, so like my friends didn't have to see me.
Sure, yeah.
But working the village, interning, working the counter. Also, I worked in reality for a little bit at 3 Ball Productions that did The Biggest Loser and Extreme Makeover. And then I think what's the show that's still on with the guy that Restaurant Bar Rehab.
I want to know, actually, I'm curious, how did you get that job?
That job was great because I actually got that job through the counter.
That's great. That's awesome.
I met Todd Nelson, who started 3 Ball Productions. I met him at the counter. I was working serving tables, and we were just, you just get to talking, and he talked about. And it's funny, he's a big Packers guy. And strangely enough, the guy who runs the Packers was my college athletic director. And so I still know him. We like email, I talk. If I want to go get tickets, he'll give me tickets. But Todd, we're talking about that. Todd's like, oh, wait, you're Mark Murphy. Mark Murphy was your athletic director? I was like, yeah. And so we just started talking football. He's like, what are you doing out here? And told him, he's like, well, hey, say, here, hit me up an email. I might be able to get you something. And I started out just working there, which was a paid job, which I didn't care. I started transcribing the footage for the shows. And I did the 7 to 7 shift. 7
That's
p.m.
kind of like the mailroom of reality TV,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I knew a lot of people who did that job, actually. It's like a good entry level gig.
It was perfect. I could do it at night. I can try to do stuff during the day. I work at other stuff during the day. As long as I got my stuff done, if I got my stuff done, nobody cared how long I stayed, right? Nobody was really looking at my back. And I held that job for on and off for a couple of years. And just when I need money, they'd call and they would like come in. And they tried to promote me there, but I said no because I did not want to get stuck in reality TV.
Yeah.
So the money was good back then too, like really good for somebody. I think it's like the story editor is like. It was like something like $2,000 a week or something like that for me on the show. It's like, man, that's good money back then when I was only making $600 a week,
And it is a crash course in storytelling, right? Like in seeing that what you shoot on set is not necessarily what the story, like how to find stories out of footage, how to manipulate things, how to rearrange things.
I can tell you anything about how reality shows. I can watch a reality show and say, "Oh, that's where they did this. That's where they did that." I can say it anyway, and it actually helped me in my directing down the line. To be honest with you, because right now I'm in a lot of the docu-style real people type of directing right now, and having that job actually definitely helped me 1,000%.
Yeah, you know what pieces you need, right?
Yeah.
To get on set.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. But the other thing that's interesting, though, Justin, is I think your point of not wanting to get promoted, it makes sense because, you do learn a lot and it's really great, but also there is a weird, some scripted people can be judgy about reality for sure. And then there's also the golden handcuffs. So, okay, story editor or story producer, you're making $2,000 a week. Well, all of a sudden, that becomes your lifestyle. All of a sudden, you need that money. You were surviving on $600 a week. So $2,000 a week, all of a sudden, you've got a mortgage or you got a new car payment or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you're just then you turn 40 and realize, oh my God, I've got a career in reality TV, which is not a bad thing, but doesn't sound like that was what you were aiming
that wasn't
for.
what I wanted to do.
But also, you've already made the leap. I had the same thing because when I left being an engineer to come to be a filmmaker, and I worked on just these random, little things, shorts, learning, and then I also did a little bit of reality. I worked on some weird things that paid well, and I was like, wait, I did not move to LA and leave engineering to work on weird reality shows.
Yeah, I get it. That's absolutely. I was the same way. I was like, there's no way I can take this next leap because. And I had friends who they were like, why don't you just do it? I was like, it just doesn't, I know myself. I was like, I can't do it. I'll be unhappy. And the one thing I'd said to myself is that I won't do something that makes me unhappy.
You already tore the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. And then, I had a friend, his name's Sam Daly, who is Tim Daly's son, if you know Tim Daly, the actor. And Sam and I have been, his girlfriend and I went to college together. And when I moved out here, she introduced us. We became really close, tight. And so because I was working in entertainment, he actually got me into the Entertainment Basketball League, which through that league, I actually got playing basketball. I met a lot of people. And one of the people that actually helped, that I became close with was Dean Cain. And Dean...
Superman.
Yes. Yes, and Dean decided, like, he just took a liking to me. And one day I was like trying to shoot some stuff. He's like, well, I need to get this new camera. So he's like, you just research it and get it and we'll figure it out. So researched, got the stuff, and we got it. And we went to pick it up at Sammy's, and he's like, okay, I want you to shoot this thing for me. And then after we shot the thing, he's like, okay, you keep the gear and just use it. He's like, I don't need it. It's like, just use it when you want to. So that was the first time I had a camera. I was like, okay, I have this camera. Let me start making stuff. So I just started going out and shooting a lot of things, like randomly doing things. And
photography or video?
Video, mostly video.
Another thing I want to just point out that's a funny Hollywood thing. You mentioned like the Hollywood Basketball League. I had a friend who played. He got his agent through the hockey league, and like all these crazy connections, and like also a lot of friends who were really seriously into kickball. Do you remember there was like a period of time where kickball leagues,
kickball
like
leagues
Hollywood
big.
kickball leagues, were like a big thing, and it was just like,
I stopped at Ultimate Frisbee.
It's just an excuse for people to like do a thing that they love to do that they don't have time to do typically, and also a little bit of networking at the same time. But it does weirdly pay off, especially if that's an interest of yours,
Yeah, and with the basketball league, I was doing a little, like on the side, I was doing a little bit of commercial, like going out for commercials because that could pay big money at the time.
As an actor?
As an actor, yes. As an actor, go out for commercials every now and then. Because I randomly got this commercial agent. I don't even know how. I think I went to like an open call and got one. And
this is like a course in networking 101, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like you moved to LA, you didn't even know why, and then you just like started meeting people, they like introduced you to the various things you could do. Exactly.
And I was interested in acting because, like I said, I didn't know. I was still trying to find my path and figure out where my lane was going to be. And got into that league, and it was interesting because there's a lot of actors, a lot of producers and stuff, and I got in based on just that I could play a little basketball, and I was in the entertainment industry, and they brought in some guys every now and then. I was never fully in the league. I was a lot of times I was the fill-in guy. So like guys are like, a lot of times a lot of the big names, were on set or filming stuff are not available. So then I'll get a call from the guy randomly like, hey, this weekend we need you. Can you show up? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll come in and play. It made my girlfriend / wife now. She didn't like that all the time, but it was
that you were like the sub.
Yeah, but I didn't mind because I wanted to play basketball. One, I wanted to play basketball. I like playing basketball, and then two, it was like I said, it was a chance for good networking opportunities and things like that. So and it panned out because I made some great friends. I got a lot of really good friends from that league, and but it led to other opportunities as well. Like I said, I got the camera, which I met Dean looked out for me and mentored me and gave me a camera, which allowed me to go out and shoot my own stuff.
Was it a type of relationship with Dean where you could write a short film and say like, hey, will you be in this?
Yeah, I could. I never did that. We actually still have a relationship now, and we talk about things that we could do together down the line, but it's just never paid out. And I've actually filmed stuff with him. He's actually put me, we did a short. I helped him. I directed some scenes in the short that he was kind of directing, and in this film he did. And Big Bear, he let me come and I shot second unit on. I don't think I got credit. I don't think I got credited on it, but it was one of those things that I just got to go and do it, and we got paid, and it was nice and fun. It was also another learning experience. So yeah, he's looked out for me a good amount. But that camera, like I was saying, I had a friend that was running a photography studio, and he needed some video done, and so he started hitting me up. Like he was shooting all these streetwear brands and eye companies and fashion brands, and so
right. And you kind of came from that world, right? You're doing
I kind of came from that world, so I knew it.
On the management side.
And so I would just come in and help him with the video and side of it. And he would be on one camera, I'd be on another camera. So I just started finding my eye and my talent there. And it was good because it wasn't too high stakes, as long as you shot something decent, they would be happy. So granted, some of those things weren't as great as I thought they were back then.
Sure. Well, but what I think is also important is that like, because you come from the world of advertising and because you're a likable guy, that you can interface with clients and understand that world, you're not going to say so. You're not going to put your foot in your mouth on his behalf. You're not going to make him look bad,
or even like try to be artsy at the expense of like what
what the job is, and you know how to do it on a political level as well, which is frankly, I think, more important than being like an incredible shooter, especially early on.
Yep. It was interesting because I learned cameras, because of that. I started taking classes. I took a couple classes at UCLA, at the UCLA Extension, which is where I really realized is where I wanted to direct, right? I could direct because I was shooting things all the time. I even took an acting class for a couple of, for like a year because I knew I didn't want to act full time, but I actually wanted to learn that side of how to work with actors as well, right? So I just took the classes to kind of learn and be a fly on the wall, and it was great. I think it was great for my career down the line.
And you thought that was like a good, because those classes are, it used to like extension, the acting class, all that stuff is like pretty expensive. You felt like it was a good investment of your money at the time.
Yes, it was. Like classes were like UCLA Extension. They only go for a quarter semester, I think. Like. They don't even go for it. They don't even go for they run in quarters. So for 3 months is I think it was like $600-$700, $800. So that was a lot for me. And then acting class, I think it was like $300 a month or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. More.
The thing about UCLA extensions, though, that's worth mentioning, if you're moving out here or you just want to learn more, they are designed for people who have jobs. Mm-hmm. So like,
night classes and
their night classes and stuff like that. So it's like classes. You are really getting a pretty great education around a schedule that maybe accommodates someone who has to make a living, Yes,
night classes online. But yeah, I think they're great to hone your skills. And I was in the class with some pretty decent people that had good eyes and were directors. But I always felt like my stuff was better. And I realized that's when, like, my first class, or maybe it was my second class. When we were like the first one, they make you take like a theory class of directing. You basically watch movies and learn what's a medium shot, what's a medium close up, those type of things, the angles. What's camera left, what's camera right. That's the first class they make you take. The second class where you actually start filming, and I felt like when I started filming, like my stuff was on par with everybody else's, and that I could actually do this for a living. That was the first time I really felt like it's like, okay, I feel good about this. This is where I think I can.
That's the inspiration you need.
And somebody said, and my professor was like, "That's really good." When he said that, when he just said that was great. And he always, and like, it's funny because that same professor, he's an Italian guy, and he was out here directing, and he still calls me today. He's like, he always calls me his favorite student. He's like, "My favorite student, Justin. How are you doing?"
That's when he calls me too.
Yeah. So it was a boost of confidence and something that said, okay, let's do this. Let's go this route. And so in the meantime, I'm doing other things. I'm signing up for contests. I'm doing short film. I did my first short film, which I raised on Kickstarter. I raised a little over 20,000 when Kickstarter was pretty much brand new. Like nobody knew about it. Like I put it up on Facebook and I said, hey, let me try this, which Kickstarter is a full-time job for anybody who does it. Like raising money for Kickstarter was a full-time job for a month.
Sometimes I wonder, like, could I make, if you're raising 20 grand in a month, which is pretty amazing for a short film, like, is there a different job that you could do for a month that to make 20,000?
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Could I just be transcribing full time for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably, but it was worth it. And we had a 4-day, I think a 4-day shoot. We shot different locations. We shot at Pepperdine. We shot at San Pedro in the water. We shot on the beach in Will Rogers.
And you wrote this too, right?
Yes. I wrote the idea, but I had an actual writer come in and write it as well.
What's the logline of the short?
It was called Public Law. A baseball player escapes Cuba and and reaches the sand of Florida. And what's the law like? And basically the end scene is like they make it to the sand and so happy at their trek across the water, and then one of them gets taken back and caught up in jail. And what's the law? It's like the foot in water law. Basically, if your foot is still in the water, you can be taken back. But if you're on dry land, you're considered on American soil. So they can take you. So it's like this in between there. So that's what the short film was about. You know, it ends with like somebody's foot was still in the water. And they got caught up by the police and they got arrested and deported.
And what's interesting is obviously there's like your sports background comes out in that thing, right? It's like it's a human story, but it's about an athlete, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you know, I do sports well. That's what I like to say. You know, I know sports, so I can do that. It's like easy for me. But yeah, so that was my first short film, and I got it around. It hit a couple of festivals, and
yeah, that sounds like a pretty expensive short for sure. Yeah, that money, at least the 20,000 is up on screen. You know what I mean?
The 20,000 is definitely all on screen, and we actually made the money work. Like that, we shot these places, and I got begged, borrowed, and steal for locations. It was a fun shoot.
So let's fast forward a little bit, right? Like you got this. You're building your network, right? You know, you're educating yourself. You're diversifying like your different skills, right? You're learning camera. You're learning producing. You know, you're seeing all sides of the business, right? You realize, okay, I want to be a director. So fast forward into maybe that first kind of big job. Is that the agency job? Is that Deutsch?
Yes. So because of everything I mentioned before, I had a friend named Eric Kaufman who was working at Deutsch, and he was seeing all the little things I was doing and my
for
experience.
People that don't know, Deutsch is like a huge, very good advertising,
like
worldwide,
it's like a blue chip
agency.
Yeah.
And trust me, I had no clue what he did at the time. I knew he worked at some kind of agency, and I was like, okay, cool. And then one day he just said, hey, you need to come in and meet my boss because I feel like everything you're doing, you're making your own. You're a maker. You're making your stuff. You're directing. You're producing your own stuff. You're doing all this stuff, and I think you would be a good fit for what we do, for what Deutsch does. I was like, sure, bring me in. And this was like September 2013, I want to say. And it was right before I was actually just got engaged, didn't have a job. I quit all my jobs. I quit the restaurant job. I quit the reality jobs. I was just like, I'm gonna work freelance to figure it out. Like this is gonna happen. And went in there. I was like, sure, let's go. So I went in there and I met his boss and we vibed. We hit it off. And he's like, yeah, I love you, but I don't have a job for you. I'm like, okay. I was like, cool. It's like I'll you know what? Let's talk. Let's keep this going, and I'll call you if I have a job.
And you didn't know anything about advertising at the time?
Nothing. I still didn't know anything at this time. Like I knew it was like an advertising agency, and like I kind of started looking up I looked up what they did before I went in there a little bit, but that was the first time I really understood what advertising was. It's
like these guys, everyone looks very fashionable and cool.
Yeah, right. It was good. It was cool offices. Everybody was, you know, it was a lot of moving around, moving parts going on. People were just like running around like chickens with their head cut off. And yeah, it was interesting. And then fast forward, I ended up getting married. And then I took this job where I did a shoot where I actually was in Texas, where I'm from, with a friend of mine from LA. And we went out there to shoot a spot, like this branded content spot for Can-Am Spider with Shawn Michaels on his ranch, with Shawn Michaels, WWE Shawn Michaels, if you know what I'm talking about. So we shot this thing, and I'm there on set, like we're filming Shawn Michaels. I get a call, and like, hey, remember that job I told you about in September? Well, I have one. Which do you want it? And I was like on set, I was like, sure. I was like, yeah. And so within the next 2 weeks, within that like week, we figured out when my start date. I was like, I can start right away, and got the job at Deutsch, which I was a producer on the team. And when I got there, they knew I wanted to direct, and he's like, I want to help you as a creative, as well as a producer, but you got to learn the producing side first before I can show you how to direct as well. So that's how it started. And that's how I started learning. And basically I called the advertising world my mini film school, because I had everything I wanted within this place. You know, they had on-site editors, they had film equipment, they had the clients that needed stuff done. You know, I had the
art directors and copywriters.
Yeah, art directors, copywriters, everything that I needed to make something was right there. And I just took full advantage of it from the beginning. Like I learned as much as I could, as fast as I could. I guess I started by the end of my first year. I helped out. Not many people get to do this, but I was producing a Superbowl spot, which is
Yeah,
the
that's
Mophie
a
one?
fast track, man. Yeah, which spot? We must have seen it.
The Mophie all powerless spot.
Dude, that spot is so insane, Matt. It's if you go to justinpolk.com, which I know is your old website, but if you go under elbow grease and produced, it's the top left one, and it's like a bonkers spot where they're literally the still frame is a dog walking a man on a leash in the middle of like an apocalyptic.
It was a big spot. I mean, I want to say overall that, I mean, the budget somewhere was between $4 to $5 million. I mean, including media buy and all that stuff. That's how much it cost to make that commercial.
How many days did you shoot it for?
That was a 4-day shoot, I want to say.
I mean, there's literally like fish raining from the sky. There's a guy getting hit by a car.
Yep.
It's like a riff on the end of the world,
yes,
right? So like there's rioting the streets, there's fire, there's it's a cataclysm.
Did you shoot on a backlot?
We shot some of it on the lot, yes. Some of it was on the lot, but most we shot on location in different places as well.
And how did you know how to produce that?
I kind of got thrown into the fire, to be honest with you. I was producing some things and doing some other smaller jobs and just kind of learning, and then I came off producing one thing for, I feel like Taco Bell or somebody like that. And my boss at the time, she was my executive producer, and she was great because another person who just kind of took me under her wings. It's like, I'm going to teach you how to produce right now. Just do what I say, you'll be fine. And then unfortunately, she, in the middle of producing this, she wasn't feeling that great. And so she started getting sick. So she had to kind of take the back seat, and she needs somebody to come in that can work with her, that she wanted to help. And she said, you can do this. Just do it.
Can you tell us what the difference is between an agency producer and like a regular production producer?
Yeah, like a line producer or something like that, or like a producer for
like
a
someone
film
from the production company. Like what? Because an agency producer is a little different than like a producer.
So agency producer is basically the person who makes it all happen on the agency side based on when the creatives, like the creative director or art director and copywriter come together and make a spot. They come in from the agency side and put all the pieces together. Whether that's help find the production company, help bid the directors, which is what we all kind of do now on the other side. But it's put the list of directors together to help them find the director they want to go with, and the production company they want to go with, because that's important just as much as just the director. And then budgeting out everything from like the music, finding the right music, helping find the right music house or effects, cast, like putting together the whole process and once we get the director, working with the director and the team to put it all together and to make the creatives happy. Because
it's kind of like high level producing. Like you're not looking for locations, you're not hiring crew members, you're not worried about what people are going to have for lunch.
No,
you're picking the people
side
who are going to help figure out
yes.
what we're going to have for lunch.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm the keys to the wheel, to the car.
And oftentimes, and I'm curious now that you're directing more, like oftentimes the agency producer feels like they're on the director's team a little bit. Like they feel like, oh, you're our inside person in what the agency is thinking, what the people are going to like and what they're not going to like, what you think is going to fly. And it's a very personable job in that way. Like you're kind of,
yes,
you're playing both sides a little bit, right? It feels like you're on the production company's team, but you're really paid by the agency.
Yes, definitely. There are different producers though. Like I was very creative friendly. I'm a creative producer. Whereas other people are producers where they're like
this is the budget.
Yes, this is the budget. Yes, this is the budget. We gotta do this. It's like it's like a straight line. Whereas I was more creative friendly, and they always say you're not supposed to say no when you're a producer. Like you're supposed to like, I can figure that out. But I also said no too a lot.
Right.
I definitely said no. I wasn't afraid to say no because I felt like if you couldn't do it, you couldn't do it. Like I'm not gonna let's not waste time and try to figure it out. But sometimes you can get creative and make stuff happen, which what I really loved about that was let's put our heads together. Let's think about this. And what can we do to make this work? Which is a lot of the fun as well. So yeah, I'm very creative friendly. And so I would definitely side more so with the creative people more so than like the we also have the account team too. Like internally there's the account team as well that you have to deal with, which is the people who are dealing with the actual client. And I always felt like they were like Debbie Downers of the whole process, which is hard. They have a hard job as well, right? They have a job. They got to keep the client happy. Whereas we're just like, well, we want great creative. That's all we care about. We want to make you money, but this great creative is going to make you that money.
Right. The client team, if you were like, hey, we just want to say Dr. Pepper 15 times and for everyone to wear a Dr. Pepper t-shirt and drive a car wrapped in a Dr. Pepper logo, they'd be like, great, we love it.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not anyone will actually like the spot and want to watch it.
Exactly.
And actually, I think like to me, what makes an ad agency great, like why Deutsch and BBDO and like Ogilvy and these like giant ad agencies are like so successful, and obviously a lot of like smaller ones too, is because they've built a good enough reputation where the creatives can say like, yes, we know you want to say Dr. Pepper 15 times, but guess what? This is what's going to make a really good spot.
Yeah, saying it one time this hilarious way is going to be much more meaningful.
Right. Whereas like the smaller agencies are like so afraid they're going to lose Dr. Pepper that they'll just be like, okay, we'll do whatever you say, and the client
what about
trumps
16
the
times?
creative.
Yeah. And it happens at bigger agencies as well, because I feel like at times that I was on certain accounts or working on certain projects that everybody was afraid of what the client might do or what might happen. And I get it. They pay the bills, but it's also like, I think there's got to be some kind of honesty there with everybody and
a trust,
like
right?
And trust. Yeah. Trust. And some people, and you get accounts that trusted you. And granted, Mophie, this was like, I think this was their only spot they ever done was the Super Bowl where they really came out and said, here we are. And they were nervous, but they trusted us. And that commercial did well for them, and they did really well for them. And I think it paid back in the end over the long haul, to be honest with you.
Yeah. A Super Bowl spot is like one of those rare places where I feel like it's pretty obvious. Even though the price is ridiculous to put a commercial on during the Super Bowl, the return is pretty obvious. Like everyone is talking about your commercial.
Can you imagine a regular person being like, hold on, I'm going to go on YouTube to watch all of the new, spots, Dr. Pepper commercials for the finale of The Office or something. Like, no one people care about Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah, and they rank them, and so you want to make a good one.
Yeah, you want to be the number one.
And during this time, what the best part about all this is that I am on set. I'm learning these directors. I'm learning what these production companies are. I'm learning how this process goes, and it's like part of my blood at the agency because I'm learning it every day and listening to these conversations and hearing what everybody has to say. And then now I take that and use it to my advantage, right?
Right. So so tell us about some misconceptions. So you've probably heard like a lot of directors pitching on jobs. What are like some things that you've seen a lot of directors do that are bad, that like are not well received on the client or creative side, like the agency side?
I think the biggest thing, to be honest with you, is listening to the creatives and what they want. Because sometimes they have the boards, they don't know exactly what they want, but they kind of hint at it, and it's really just regurgitating what they like. To be honest with you, regurgitate what they said in a way that's creative for you as a director. What some directors did was just, and sometimes it worked, but most of the time it didn't. It was just totally go off the left. Like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And some directors have that and can do it, but a lot of times it's like, it doesn't really hit home, because what it is that it's not only creators you're talking to the creatives, then the client, then the account team, and like you got to go all the way up the ladder. And it's like it's more than just two people. It's like 10 people that you have to satisfy in order to get that job.
And you spent 6 months getting them all creatively aligned.
Yes,
they all agree on these boards. They all like it.
Exactly.
And it's really tricky to be like, but what if it was on Mars?
Yes.
Even if that's a great idea.
And sometimes it's not, and like the legal might not allow that. And so there's a lot of different things at play that directors might not understand, that they never dealt with in the business of being in the process.
But had you been in situations where a director pitches and then everyone's like, they literally just told us what we told them. Like they didn't add.
They have said that there have been times where we said that without giving their own twist on it. Like if you don't have your own creative twist, like that's when you really know a director's like, okay, I'm just doing this just to bid on it, and like see if I can get it. And it feels like they're just in it just to shoot and make money. Whereas in terms of just instead of just shooting, I mean, of course everybody was in it to make money, but it's like shoot it to have some kind of creative partnership in it. It feels different when somebody does, like if you don't come in there and have your own twist on it, it's like right away, And people there's a lot of times people came in and didn't really have anything new to add, and so it was like, okay, all right, next please. Or people that just didn't have that you felt like were just like you said might do it, but it felt like maybe somebody else might have wrote it. They came in, you're like, they couldn't really. They're speaking on it, but it didn't seem like they really wrote it as well. Which a lot of directors don't.
Oh, you
write
mean
their own
like like somebody writes a treatment or a pitch deck for a director, and they come and they pitch it, but you can tell.
Yes,
that
exactly.
They don't know it that well.
They don't know.
Oh, that's really interesting and a little validating because Oren and I both write our own treatments, and like I get help on layout sometimes, and Oren will, but Oren mostly does all of the work himself, like 99% of the time.
Yeah, I mean the layout you're not really judged. I mean you're judged on, but you don't need to pitch it.
Yeah, but there's no way I would ever have somebody ever write a treatment for me. Like that's the thing I bring to the table, and so it's nice because sometimes you're like, well, dang, it would be nice to not have to do this part, like.
Right, but then you're stuck making excuses for a treatment that you don't love as you're trying to pitch people and tell people why you love it.
I write 95% of my treatments. There comes a time where I've been like too busy, and I know I'm not going to be able to write this. Like I might be on something. Like I know I'm not going to have enough time to write this. Whereas it's more of a collaboration with me. Like we'll get in the Google Doc and we'll write. Like I have a writer and we'll write it together, kind of situation. I haven't had anybody just write it full out for me. I had no clue what it was about. I mean, I've obviously talked to the treatment writer, but like I never had like just say, okay, now go off and write it. I never had that happen because I felt like that's disingenuous to the process, to what I'm doing.
Well, so Justin, I want to get to the second half of your career here, right? Like you've gotten into it, but what was the decision? How did you're doing Superbowl spots? You're working for one of the biggest agencies in the world, doing really creatively exciting things. What was that thing? How did you decide like, oh, it's time for me to go off on my own? Yes,
there was a couple things that happened. While I was at Deutsche, they were allowing me to direct stuff for the clients internally. Wouldn't always be big things. But eventually, an opportunity came to direct something for Sprint. I'd done something with them the year before. It was like a small social thing. And this is supposed to be some more digital things. And this was actually 4 days before I had my first child. Like I was actually leaving, like I was shooting on Thursday and Friday was my last day before I left on paternity leave for a month. And I shot this thing. I came up, kind of had these ideas. And they had these creators that wrote these ideas, but they weren't fully fleshed out. But I was like, okay, well, we worked on them together, and then another production company was shooting the main spot, and while they were shooting the main spot, I was pulling the actors off that set to shoot the digital spot. And strangely enough, I shot that. We shot in the LA Times building downtown LA. I don't know if you know that building.
Mm-hmm.
I think
not
it's
there anymore. I don't think.
No, I think it's totally different now. But we shot there, and I went away and just didn't even care about it, because I was like, whatever, I'm gone. Well, come to find out, after I had the kid,
it's not the sweating, the one where the execs are sweating, the Verizon execs.
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one that you just kind of randomly did.
Yeah, so I just shot it and I went off, and it turns out they were liking the stuff I shot better, like in the edits when they were going back to that, they were liking the stuff I shot better than the original spot. So I'm at home. This is I had my child in October, and then I'm watching the World Series, and all of a sudden there's my spot on the World Series. Like I'm looking at it on the TV.
And you didn't even know that it was going to be.
I got an inkling like a day before. Like one of my producer that worked at Deutsche was like, "Hey, just FYI, your stuff might be running tomorrow," and I was like, okay, cool. But I kind of, I'm still in that like baby mode with my kid.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's...
you got baby brain, right?
Yes. And all of a sudden I'm watching the World Series, and I'm like, oh, there it is. And there it was playing. and it played for the whole time for the next 3 weeks. And so that was like my
it's a really
kind of
good
like,
spot.
okay, now I know I could do something that actually a big client would like and will play. Let me go and figure this out. So during that time, I ended up getting, like, while I was on paternity leave, I actually ended up getting another job at another small agency where I was supposed to be more of a director than a producer. And then so I went there. I'm not gonna say the name of the agency because I'm not gonna do them like that. But I went there for a little bit. I stayed there for literally 8 months because as soon as I got there, I realized that it was a bad decision. I took this job and decided to go freelance. And after that job, so I started freelance producing and directing, and that's where it started. So I started.
Can we talk without bad mouthing any companies or anything? It is that tricky thing. Like we've been talking about how big Deutsch is and all of that. Was it that sometimes you can shift from these huge giant campaigns to things that are maybe a little smaller, a little more boutique, or like in a more general sense, what are the things that you wanted that you didn't get? Maybe
it was a lot of empty promises. That's what it was. They were a little boutique, but they were allegedly supposed to be moving in a direction that was from apart from where they were. They were smaller. They weren't shooting a lot. They were shooting a lot, but they're keeping it internal. They're a very secretive agency. They a lot of NDAs for everybody. But like when I got there, literally I got there, and like the second week I was there, like one of the bigger clients left. I was like, oh, okay. I was like,
right.
What is this?
So it's just all of a sudden the opportunities aren't there the way you were hoping.
Yes, I didn't know that client was leaving. Like, and then like I started producing for them, and like, okay, we got this other thing they might want to shoot, but nothing would ever shoot. The only things that they actually shot in the agency were like 3 things in the 8 months I was there, and 2 of them I produced. I did. I'm like, that was 8 months, and like the next thing that was happening was like a big animation job. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. So I just didn't see like where I was supposed to be was supposed to be more like directing and producing, like doing a little bit of both. And the directing side wasn't happening. So I literally just stayed there until I bought my house and I left.
Well done.
It was easy to buy a house with a full-time job.
Yeah.
Put it like that.
Tell me about it, Justin.
Yes. It was easy to buy a job with a full-time job. So we bought our house. And when those papers were signed, my notice was put in like next week.
So now you've got your own gig, your own thing. Talk to us about how that's kind of shaken out, right?
Yeah, I just started freelance directing, producing, and I knew that I wanted to. I figured, just because of some things that happened between Deutsch and other places and just the industry in general, I knew I wanted to start my own production company at some point. So, but I wasn't there mentally yet, and I wasn't there financially yet, where I could be like, okay, I can step out. So I just took a couple of jobs freelancing. I freelanced at a couple of agencies. I directed some things. I directed this whole chicken of the sea campaign, it was weird and funny.
How did you get that? Because did you know people?
I knew the creators. The creators and they knew they saw my directing work before. They just brought it straight to me. It's like, can you direct this? And that was happening.
Because this whole time you're building a reel also. Yeah. Right.
I'm able to build a reel. So that's one thing Deutsch was able to let me do was help me build a reel internally. They gave me more than just my fun projects, my personal projects. It gave me a chance to actually have actual clients.
Fortune 500 companies.
Yes, on the reel, which people knew. People were like, oh, I know that company.
Yeah. Verizon.
Yes.
I saw that game or that spot in the World Series.
Yeah. So,
By the way, it's Sprint. It's an anti-Verizon spot.
Ooh, pardon me. Sorry.
Which one? Sprint. Yes, Sprint. Yes, that's right. It is actually an anti-Verizon spot, but I ended up directing Verizon down the line anyway.
Hey, there you go.
I started, and then later down the line, I ended up starting Invisible with 2 friends because, I think the biggest thing for us was the access and the diversity and inclusion within the industry, right? When I was at the agencies, I noticed that there was a lot of people like me directing. They were there, but they weren't able to be found as easily. So, me being a black man or just black person in general, for people who are just listening. And I thought that the advertising, just like film, should look more like the world. And I partnered up with my friend Mel Jones, who she is a director and producer herself. And then another friend who I met down the line named Stephen Love Jr., who's also a producer. And, so we got together and just made this collective and just started from scratch. But, during that time I was, my boss at Deutsch left and he went to, I was still trying to figure things out, and we were thinking about partnering with Film 47. They gave me a chance to come in and direct some things with them. And that's where I directed the Verizon spot that ended up going to the Super Bowl, and that was Super Bowl spot and all that stuff. I direct 6 spots. And, I think because he saw my work, because he saw the work I was doing, not only outside of Deutsch, but he knew that kind of directing I could do inside of Deutsch, because he was the one who gave me opportunities there. I was able to get those opportunities as well. So it's almost like, it's always been like somebody connecting the dots, like somebody seen my work in the past and kind of helped me in the future. It's kind of how it's always kind of worked for me.
Yeah, man, it is pretty incredible. The story, like when you hear it condensed like that, right? You just sound like the friendliest, most likable guy. Like, how many times were you like, well, this person took me under their wing and showed me the ropes and stuff?
Yeah. I've been pretty blessed to have like people that I think I put a lot into my work ethic, and what I want it to be as perfect as possible when I'm shooting and directing or doing whatever I'm doing. So I think that shows and rubs off and people see it. And I think that's where people that work hard and, can do it correctly. And then also just the creativity. I think I have, my creativity shows, hopefully it shows through my work. I never thought I'd be directing, docu sports spots. Right now it's like where I'm living in apparently, but I can do it, and I can talk to people, and I can conversate, and I can, have a good conversation with somebody, and I feel like I could pull stuff out of people that I never thought I could pull out before, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, and I think to kind of put a bow on it, right? Like, it is a culmination of so many different interests, right? Like film, we always talk about, it's really multidisciplinary. Like, you do need to know how to talk about fashion and make a great fart joke in the same job.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes, it is
right?
true.
And that, like, there's no way that what interests are going to pan out. And so when you've got an area of expertise and you've built the network to help you kind of hone in on that area of expertise, then that's something that's special. And also then we talk about all these people taking you under their wings. Your hard work is making them money.
Yes.
Right. Like, it's not just
That's
altruism,
true.
right?
That's
like
true.
They're like, oh, Justin, he can pull great sound bites out of athletes. Like, let's do it. Let's figure it out. He knows how to do this. Right. And so like there's that back and forth relationship.
Think about this. Is the one thing that when I shot the Super Bowl spot, what it was is a lot of things. It's Vic seeing my directing. It's being an ex-athlete. It's also working with athletes as well, right? So all those things, those things all come, and my film background as well. All that stuff kind of comes together and also the fact that I'm Black as well, because a lot of these athletes are, and if you're doing a spot that's very emotional, I can pull something out of those guys that a lot of people can't. I talk their language, like, right? I'm spitting, like, I'm talking to Devery Henderson, and Devery, who came from nowhere and bumblefuck, who knows, I can speak to that, and I can speak to like the trials he's going through, like with football, and he's telling me about practice. I can relate to that because I play college football. I understand the things he's going through. I worked with NFL athletes. I know what their game days are like. I know what he's going through. I can get right down to it immediately and relate.
I think there's two things to that. One, it's like you can say, hey, I know you. I have the same story.
Yeah, I'm going to call practice rehearsal on accident.
Yes. Yes.
But then there's also the fact that you don't just have a comfort with him, but you have a comfort with the process of shooting a commercial. So it's like,
yes.
So he feels like he's in good hands. The crew feels like they're in good hands, and it's kind of this perfect marriage. I think kind of, to me, like an interesting takeaway just from your whole journey and story that is like teachable in a way. It's kind of just about your attitude. And I do think maybe because you're kind of this multidisciplinary guy, you have an arts background with the in architecture and sports and management and restaurants and all these different things that when, in not even really knowing what you wanted to do, that, why does Dean Cain or this producer at Deutsch or all these other people like want to help you out or bring you in, or even at Village Roadshow? Sure, it's, because you're good at your job and you help, people make money or whatever, but also because you're not like, this cocky guy that comes in. It's like, I went to film school. I know what I'm doing. I know, like people like to help other people, like we have this podcast because we enjoy talking about this stuff. And if you enter like a new place, instead of like trying to show off about everything but kind of talk more about like what excites you and what you want to learn, I think people will take you, and try to involve you in things. There's
no one ever takes like a cocky film student who thinks they knows everything under their wing. Right? Why would you? They think they know everything. They're not open to being taught.
Yeah, I definitely was not that person. I was definitely a person ready to learn. But yeah, you're right. People naturally, I feel like most people naturally want to help people. And I think that I hit a lot of places at the right time. Like you said, like even at Deutsch, I was there when it became, it was blowing up, and I was there. We were on fire, just getting work and clients. And at one point, we had 700 people working there. We were the biggest agency on the West Coast. So like I was there during that time, and it was a great place to be. But I also saw it start to go down too, and I left. So it's just I've been blessed to be at places when I always feel like I somehow get the right place at the right time. I'm blessed. I got blessed that way.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're a type of person that makes a lot of opportunities for yourself. It's easy to sit at home and like be like, where are the jobs? It's harder to go take classes and do all these things and meet people and intern and transcribe and, whatever. And
explain to your girlfriend you have to go play basketball with Dean Cain on a Saturday morning when she wanted to make eggs.
Yeah. It was Sunday mornings though. It was Sundays.
Pardon me. Yeah, that's even worse, right?
So with Invisible Collective, what kind of people are you looking to put on your roster? Like, is there?
Well, we are inclusive, but we stray heavily towards minorities, women, the LGBTQ plus community. We try to see the people who are less underrepresented. We try to get them representation. Get them a light.
And this is for commercials mainly.
Mostly for commercials, music videos, all that kind of thing.
And how do you come to meet people that you want to work with? Like how say there's a listener at home who's like, oh, this sounds great. Justin seems like the sort of person I want to work with. Are you taking pitches, or is it more relationship based? How do you kind of find people that you want to work with?
I think at first it was a lot of relationship based because, being in this industry for a long time on both sides, I think there's a lot of people that were able to get in, that wanted to be in commercials that hadn't had a chance. And so that's kind of where it started, just from personal relationships with people that we knew. And then eventually we started branching out and getting new people. We're always willing to see a filmmaker's or a person's work. They might not always be ready to be where on the roster or things like that, but doesn't mean we won't look up somebody and try to give them an opportunity. To be honest with you, we actually like to help people, and that's why we're called Collective, because we have a main roster, but we also have our overall collective, which is where we like to stash people who are up and coming or working hard. And we might have a project that might not be a lot of money, but might work out, might be something that's perfect for them to come in and, creatively take over and just work on it. So they can just, a lot of times it's like, just email me and I'll one of us email me or my partners, and we'll respond most of the time and take a look and say, it might not be right for us right now, but we'll keep an eye out for you, and we add you to our list of people. Or if it's there and it's ready to be up, like let's get a bigger meeting and see what we want to work together. And honestly, we like to keep our company as family oriented as possible. We want it to feel like we've been together for a long time, and so we try to keep it to people who are talented and great people. We no assholes allowed.
Another thing I loved about what you said, Justin, is like you phrased it as some people might not be ready, right? Which I love, because I think advertising sometimes can be really, there's a lot of rejection, right? And so it's easy to think like, oh, like I'm not good enough. But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about people honing their skills and elevating, raising their game. And so it's okay for a company to be, a blue chip company that works with big fancy brands. That doesn't mean that you won't get there eventually, but that you have to build that reel up more.
It might just be like you might be missing one thing. You might we seen you do it once, and you know how it is, man. It's tough because what we're dealing with is a lot of times is a lot of people don't have the reels, and even some people on our roster may not necessarily fully have the reel, but we know what they can do, and it's about getting them in the process and just getting in the bid process, so you can bid against other people. Like it's just little by little getting people familiar with how this works, and then just help people. Like if something comes along, like okay, I know you don't have it, but this is how we're gonna build your reel up. We're gonna give you this $30,000, social campaign and let you go out and direct it, and give you. We're gonna give you. We'll give you as much resources as we can provide. Like we'll give you the insurance. We'll try to help you cut a deal on that camera. We'll work out in the crew. We'll help you with payroll. Like we'll do all this stuff to get you, just so you just can worry about the creative and can get this great spot on your reel.
Yeah. What I love about that also is that a lot of companies aren't interested in helping people grow because they're preoccupied with the biggest job they can possibly get. And it sounds like because maybe you had those opportunities at Deutsch of seeing how that can pay off. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
it's great.
It's also the thing about giving back and knowing where I was and I was that person at one point, right? And I mean, probably we all were at some point. We all were that person trying to find out where we want to be, and getting somebody just talking to you is a big deal. And them saying like, okay, and being honest with you is as well, because I feel like a lot of places if I talk to them or if I met with somebody, they were like, oh yeah, you got good stuff, you can do this, but let's just talk about I'm like, no, I'm like, you have good stuff, or decent stuff. It might not be as great, but I see the potential there, and if you do this and do that, you can get better. It might be something simple as your sound is horrible in this thing, which is a big deal, right? Having good sound is a huge deal. Just if your sound is good, we get your sound better. Let's choose something that has better sound on it, and then I can show that to people. It might be as simple as something as that.
Right. Awesome. Well, so if people want to find out more about Invisible, they can go to weareinvisible.co.
That's right. That's right. Weareinvisible.co.
And if people want to see your older stuff, they can go to justinpolk.com.
Yes. All my updated stuff is on there.
Awesome. Well, Justin, it was great to talk to you. Can you hang out and endorse with us?
Unpaid endorsements.
My endorsement actually is inspired by Justin, who noticed on Zoom a book behind me on the shelf that's called Master Shots. And it's in its second edition. It's remastered and digitally enhanced. And it's pretty great, actually. It's really just you kind of use it almost like a coffee table book, but it's a list of just every sort of setup that you could possibly think of, basically. So I'm looking at eyeline change or walking and talking, parallel tracking, and it'll show you both kind of a diagram of 3D models showing you where the camera is and how the blocking works, and then an example from a film where they use that technique. And it's pretty great. It's nice to just kind of grab for when you're just trying to think up shots, it's just kind of good to flip through. And my wife in particular really likes it. So Master Shots by Christopher Kenworthy.
Okay, here's a bad one. It's bad because I actually haven't watched it yet, but everyone says it's amazing. It's this movie called Nomadland with Frances McDormand that I officially can tell people I can work on now because I guess my name is in the credits. But I did visual effects on that movie, and everyone says it's really good. I'm going to watch it very soon. It's really weird as a visual effects artist. You oftentimes only get to see the scenes that you work on, and you don't get to see the whole movie. But I do effects for this producer a lot, and I've done them on some big movies, like Oscar-nominated movies, but I'm usually doing these last-minute effects, and I'm fixing them or fixing things. and the VFX companies that are like the main vendors for the movies, they like don't want to share the credit. So so I'm usually uncredited, but on Nomadland, both that and the Tekashi 6ix9ine documentary I'm credited on in the rolling credits, so I can tell people I worked on them.
The first one is just sayings that kind of, you know, one's the saying that kind of gets me through just kind of life, and then, working and directing as well, is all they can say is no. That's it. That's my thing. All they can say is no. It's like, ask, and all they say is no. Like, you want to try something new, try to different shot. You want to do a different location. You just ask, and if they say no, then you're back to where you started. But nothing is lost, because it shouldn't hurt your feelings creatively or anything like that, because you're throwing out ideas to try to make it better, and if they don't feel like it's right for what you're doing, then maybe it's not right. So yeah, that's my first one. And then another one has to do with just directing in general. For me, and I should say for me, and people who can take this or leave this how they want. I feel like there's a lot of people who want to come in and be the director that's like, I'm the king of the set, and this is how it's going to roll, and that works for that works for some people, but I also feel like in order to survive, you have to collaborate. You have to have trust in your production designer that they're going to pull out the best thing in you, and you have to listen to your cinematographer because he has ideas too, and even I've even been on sets where my first AD is super smart and it says something that's been like, oh, that's interesting, and it gives you an idea that helps you out in a certain situation where you might have been kind of caught for a second. And I think that people shouldn't think that just because a director doesn't mean that they can't get good advice from anybody else around them, because I think it only makes everything better.
I love that. Yeah, I just read this interview with Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina and Annihilation and Devs now. And the interviewer was like, so Devs is like so specific and has such a strong vision. Like, is that exactly what you imagined before you guys made the show? And he was like, well, look, I used to be like a novelist. Like, when you're a novelist, you control everything. But like, why I want to be, but that was super lonely. And the reason I want to be a filmmaker is because I can have ideas and I bring them to people and they make them better. The cinematographer can have an idea for how we light things. The production designer can have an idea for materials we use. And the reason it's good and it feels like a unified vision is because I'm working with people and I'm collaborating with them, and it's like, it's not just me, it's us, it's a team. Something interesting he's doing is he's writing a totally new TV show, unrelated to Devs at all, but he's going to try to use the entire cast from Devs in it. Kind of, he's like, I kind of have like how theater companies, they'll like take the same cast and put them in a new play.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to try to do that with TV.
Or Adam Sandler.
Or
the thing Lizard. That Adam Sandler and theater companies have in common. There you go. You found it, Justin.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
cool. So if people want to, are you on Twitter or anything? Are you on social?
At Twitter at Just Polk, JustPolk. Same thing for Instagram. I keep the same handle for everything. So yeah, if you can find me on there. You can find my email on weareinvisible.co.
Awesome. Well, you can email us if you have any questions, want to know anything about what we said, or have comments, want to tell us how wrong we are. justshootitpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on all socials at justshootitpod. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at SmiteyPyleg, or on Instagram, I'm at OKaplan.
You can follow me at Mr. Matt Enlow on Instagram and Twitter. This episode was edited by Sarah Weirda. Our webmaster is Ewan Williams, and our social media maestro is Derek Aiello. You're listening to the Free Music Archives artist Jahzzar. Thanks, everyone.